some tertiary, but we all know that Zim economy is agro-based and it depends much on the primary industry. It is the one that is driving all other industries as a unit. So the interdependence that is there is what is important at this point, and we need to try to contribute and make sure that we outline things that we feel that are the problems that are going to come from this drought that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mukuma Champion, and I'm happy that you have actually not only confined, even in the next submission that you may want to bring about, confined to issues to do with the food insecurity, but also on what is going to be affected by the erratic rains that we have. And one thing that I would want to also highlight is it's not only Zimbabwe that has been affected by the El Nino led drought. We have realized that parts of Zambia, eastern Angola, we have got also Botswana, and somehow in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, they've been affected by the drought. But in comparison, we need also to work on the second issue that we are talking about, the government's preparedness, to say what has been put in place, and did the authorities put in place measures that are going to contain and ameliorate our people from the catastrophic effects of this drought. And maybe to just give us a background of what we know about the drought, is to say there is a high likelihood of an estimated between 1.2 to 3, actually 2.7 to 3 million people are going to be gravely affected by the drought, and they need immediate intervention from the government or humanitarian organizations. And so far, the main contributor or the humanitarian assistance that is likely going to be coming from the United Nations World Food Program, which is gravely strained because there are a lot of countries that are some which are in war, including Ukraine, including the Gaza, including Sudan. Those are the countries that are in need of immediate food. But because of this drought and because of issues to do with the lack of resources from our country or from our government, we've actually realized that Zimbabwe is going to be part of those countries that need to be assisted. So as we'll be discussing about these things, what we need also to get deeper into what the government has actually put in place in order to make sure that people are not going to be having problems in as far as food security in the households is concerned, but also to speak about what we have heard from the government, in particular the president and also the Minister of Agriculture. They've always been giving us assurance that we have got enough grain within our stocks, and just in the past few days we have been informed that from July this year, the government is going to be scrapping a duty on basic commodities that are going to be imported, meaning to say it is going to be upon households to make sure that they need to go and source their own food from outside the country and not the government. That's a challenge that we need to speak about. And when this happens, then it means that only those people who have got resources, and when we speak about resources, we speak about the foreign currency. As we all know that our currency is not going to be used across the borders to source the form of food. So, Mkoma Champion, being an economist, I think you will need also your input in as far as that is concerned to say the burden has been shifted towards ordinary people who do not have any disposable income to go and source their own food. In as much as we can applaud the government for taking out taxes or to make basic commodities duty free, but the thing is, do we have people to, or do our people have enough money to go and source all those things? So there are a number of things that we are going to be discussing, and thank you very much to broaden our discussion, not only to issues to do with the food, but also a generation of electricity and any other issues. But Mkoma Champion, let me give you this opportunity to explain some of the issues, the concerns that ordinary people on the ground are supposed to be worried about. Thank you. All right, Mkoma Champion, I think you could be a bit busy, but we need also to go ahead, and I would want to welcome Sabugdobs, who is with us. We also need to welcome Shiko, who is also with us, and like we are saying, to just highlight or give you heads up on what we are discussing about. The topic is clear there. This is a result of the drought, that El Nino led drought that we have had. It's important that we need to discuss and say what is going to be in place in as far as food security in the country, especially after it actually came to fore that the government itself, through the Ministry of Agriculture, it explains that there's not going to be enough food in the reserves, in the grain marketing board, and what is in store for the Zimbabweans. And as diasporans, what are we expected to also contribute, because we are not going to be leaving our parents to starve because the government has been irresponsible. Ameno Mkoma Champion kanamane mkano kutaura, then you can go ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would like to give an analysis from what I gathered for some, I think for almost like an hour. I do have got, all right, the background which talks about preparedness. When we talk about preparedness, we will actually look at the information dissemination, importation of grain, repealing of import bans, incentives for private business people or private sector to import. And also, while we are at that, we also have to look at 1, 2, 3 things that we have been maybe subjected or exposed to, in the sense that I think here we do have got a campaign, a message that was there by one of the presidential candidates, Mr. Mnangagwa, saying, this is Africa, from Africa Report, that says Mnangagwa speaking of achieving food security to the extent that a non-governmental organization distributing food, distributing food will be rendered redundant or useless. We will be food secure because we have built dams, and we are going to promote irrigation, and that is going to give us food each and every year, which is sustainable. But when I look at that statement will be answered later. So let me go and look at to say what are the background of the information is that Zimbabwe is expecting to harvest. That was last year. It was expecting to harvest something like 1.1 million tons. And there was a food gap. That was 13 December 2023. where the issue of grain deficit was also discussed by the current finance minister, Mutuli Ncube, where he was saying that annually, that was his projection. And maybe his or his own
Sorry,
assertion to say
Mkoma
annually.
champion. I don't know. It could be me who is not hearing you properly. Are you closer to your mic? Can I have a confirmation from other people if they can hear Mkoma champion well? Because I'm having problems this side. Sisi Beauty, how are you? Can you confirm if you are hearing Mkoma champion well? Or Dr. Maifa? Can you confirm with the side? Okay, go ahead. I can strain myself. Go ahead, Mkoma champion.
All right. Before we can continue. What you can do, you can give maybe 1, 2, 3 some people a mic a bit so that maybe they can put their input while I am waiting maybe for your connections to be well so that we can go forward properly. Thank you.
Well, there's no problem. Thank you very much. If there's anyone who would want also to contribute in as far as this subject is concerned, Mkoma Dobbs, Dr. Maifa Ziko, ZDV, China, and Weta. Let's give our contributions. But I just want to quickly speak about Zimbabwe government's intervention in as far as food security and also to prepare for the drought is concerned. The government of Zimbabwe has actively addressed the challenges posed by drought in the country, and yes, some of the intervention modalities that it has actually put in place. The government of Zimbabwe actually put a national drought plan, which is to mitigate the impact of drought. And the plan has got a 10-step process that includes understanding drought and defining its impacts and organizing responsibilities, which means in as much as we have had a situation in which the government through its presidency and the Ministry of drought vachitaura nyaya yekuti chikafu chinokwanisa kuva chinenge chiripo, and it means the plan has been there, and the fact that now taakunzwa nyaya dzekuti we are likely going to be having we are likely going to be having issues to do with people not having enough food. It's something that could not be that cannot be understood. Why? Because the plan itself is supposed to be self-explanatory, and the government also goes ahead to speak about reviving traditional techniques in making sure that food is going to be there. There are a number of issues that the government is put in place, and our questions is to say what is actually going wrong. And when, like I said, that it is not only Zimbabwe that has been affected by this drought, we have got all other countries. And what we have realized that, for example, we have got ku Zambia, ku Chilema, vakataura nyaya dzekuti we need actually they have declared a national disaster as far as the drought is concerned. What makes Zimbabwe not to do the same? And the declaration of national disaster helps the country to actually also have the international community put Zimbabwe on a radar to say we need to also intervene and help. But this thing has not actually happened. I'm not too sure if it is going to happen, but so far what we have seen in places like Matabeleland North, Matabeleland South, Manicaland in particular, in Boyera, people are actually now starving and they do not have anything in as much as the food is concerned. So what has got to be done? There are some places where I heard the aid that they are getting, one mapfunde, and the mapfunde anofana kuara anotanga ato tswiwa, and then wokanga ozoendesa kuchigayo. Kuendesa kuchigayo uku we need money. In particular in the rural areas, people do not have anything. I am also being told that issues to do with maize meal prices akakwira zvisingaiti, and there's a likelihood when we come to December, when food is going to be in short supply, people are going to be having problems. 10 kg yehupu has been going for about $4. Now it's between $7 to $8. Who in Zimbabwe, especially in the rural areas, can afford to have $8 to buy the 10 kg, which cannot sustain the family for 3 or so weeks? And these are the challenges that we are speaking about. And when we speak about those challenges, we have actually realized that the information that we have had, Mkoma Champion, you have been speaking about dissemination of information. I think there has been a propaganda from the part of the government to say, while we thought that the people on the ground thought that there is enough food or there is enough grain, we have realized that the information that we're being given is not as what we are now having. Takanzwa nyaya dzekuti actually statistics give us the information that between 700 to 800 metric tons of grain has been harvested in Zimbabwe, to an expected 1.2 metric tons of grain, which means we've got so much of diversity. And when we have got such information, it is unfortunate that we are going to be having problems. But I think we've got about we actually have got 2 speakers. Beauty, thank you very much for coming. Mambo Dobbs, we also thank you very much for coming. Sisi Beauty, please come through and give us your input in as far as what we are speaking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the topic as well. Drought and food insecurity in Zimbabwe and the government's preparedness. Well, our government is never prepared for anything, are they? Masadza matura ifanogara akazara kuitira kuti vanhu vasafe vakashaya chikafu. But matura edu anogara ari empty. Tichinyeperwa kunzi taita mabumper harvest after bumper harvest of grain. Tiri kuexporta chibage, tiri kuzoita so, tiri kuzodai so, NDS 1 iri kushanda, inonzi chiipfumvudza iri kuuya yakaproducer, it's very successful, our people won't go hungry. Well, drought was forecasted ages ago. They knew about El Nino, they knew about the El Nino effects, but what did they put in place to safeguard the populace? Nothing, as far as we can tell right now, nothing was prepared for the people. Then now we've got all this sudden, to import chibage from Zambia, we're now importing chibage from South Africa, chero majemo tukumada ngauye Zimbabwe. And yet all this time we spent 5 years now to choose once year on year we are having bumper harvests. We are producing more, the same, or if not better than when we used to have white commercial farmers in 2001 or 2000 in Jakarta. That was the message at IPO Warakash. But what was the reality? The reality was good. As much as they were producing that, it was never going to be something that the whole population can rely on. As much as we're being told they were exporting grain, they probably were not even exporting anything to begin with. Maybe they were buying to resell across them countries and not actually taking in anything from Zimbabwe to the outside. And then we were told could the GM, the grain marketing, gamas, the millers themselves were told that the millers are doing so well. vari kugadzira chipfu, vari kugadzira a whole lot of meals or cereals and stuff like that. They're processing it well. And yet the same gamas people ndo vanhu vacho futi zvautaura kuti hatina chatinacho, we are buying from other countries and ndo zvatiri kuprocessa as your mealie meal zvikazoti. So it's just I don't know. And then tagara tine ma-GMB scandals asingaperi ekuti munhu anouya netraki isina chinhu obva asvika achinzi atengesera chibage chakazoti kugrain marketing board. At the same time traki iyo iri kubuda futi yakazara chinhu. Saka chezimbabwe aiwa. And then the government, I'm sure, haina kana chekupa vanhu. Izvo zvakatomirira futa naUSAID vavanoswera vachituka nekushoropodza. Ivo vanhu vacho vakadhipota futi musi unoyo nguva yekuzoita nguva yozovabatsira futi. Ndo vanhu vanenge vakamirira ipapo. Amawani.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, brother.
Okay, Mukoma Champion, just take over.
Okay, thank you. I will present everything that consists of some of the information that you are talking about. In terms of preparedness, just as an answer to you, Sister Beauty, is that it is actually USAID that has got already mappings that are there in terms of food deficit and the number of people affected and everything. So there is an article from Africa Report. I think in their Africa Report document or in their magazine, there is more information to this in terms of the government's preparedness in terms of drought. But without wasting much time, let's go to Sabuku Dobbs, Mambo, Sadunu, Torai Maiki, Mutipo, my inputs. Thank you so much. Brother Zimbabwe, please come. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks. Drought and food insecurity in Zimbabwe, government preparedness. On paper, we have that plan that we should always prepare for drought in terms of food security. And even if we talk about it, you listen to the government, they always tell you something to say, it's an issue of national security. That is on paper, because we have that strategic grain reserves, which should be always available. But what is happening is the opposite, because we have a lot of problem in the way how we do our farming. First, our government don't want to pay farmers. Even if you produce maize, the price which they are willing to pay per ton in United States dollars, and the money which they use when they are importing, the difference, you can't understand it, because previously they used even to pay about 100 United States dollars a ton. We write a petition. I was involved in that petition to say no. The price in the region, we compared the price in Namibia, South Africa, Botswana, and Zambia to say they pay so much per farmer. So why can't they just do the same? The government said yes, we are going to do the same. But come harvest, they changed, because that is ZANU-PF. They just changed and go back to something about 200. But now they are importing it as from 400. That is my understanding now, to say they're importing at least 400 a ton. That is the problem we have with our government. And the issue of farmers themselves, commercial farmers, we don't have commercial farmers. We are not creating commercial farmers. There are some people who occupy the farms. They have other professionals. We can go to Midlands. The most successful farmer would be Emerson Tambuzo Mnangagwa, because if you visit his farms, like Toad farms and so forth. But he's the one who is doing the farming, getting the money and the inputs free from Funvunza and other presidential input schemes and so forth. So it's not really commercialized the way how it used to be run during the white farmer era. And then there is other issue of the security of the tenure, to say the farmers who are on offer letter, offer license, they are not making a lot of investment because they get rid of, to say, repossess it. The way they did to Patrick Chesa in Trumanzuzi Yagwe, Vuma, they repossessed his farm with investment worth 250,000 and employing over 50 workers. But they simple, and he was even exporting to UK and Europe, but they simply repossess it because he was not dancing according to government. He was even standing as an opposition MP candidate. So they just repossess it. And if we go then around to other places where we have developed irrigation schemes, for example, in Chinese, we have that the Kilimanjaro area project. You would find out to say it was supposed to benefit about 200 farmers, but now a big chunk of those who have started benefiting are not Zimbabweans, they are Asians. So we don't understand what is really happening. To say, are we going to benefit? Because wherever there's a plan, we find out to say those who are supposed to benefit are not the ones who are benefiting. So we have really a crisis, whether we have drought or no drought. We are not able to produce enough food to feed ourselves because of the way how they control the market. And the issue of controlling who buys the maize is one of the obstacles to say we are forced to sell to GMB, and GMB have got a set up price. Other buyers are not allowed. It becomes a criminal offense, both criminal and the civil offense to say you can be prosecuted, and the civil offense again, you have your grain confiscated and so forth. So it's very discouraging to produce, to become a commercial farmer in Zimbabwe at any given time. So I think that is the problem we are facing today. It's not only the drought itself or whatever which is causing food insecurity in Zimbabwe. It is that we don't have a long-term investment in terms of our food. And even even if we go to the city itself to say the way how we get the seed now, the grain seed now, to say we are now getting through the private institutions. But if we go during the Rhodesian days, we used to get them through our institutions like Makoholi and Matopos research centers. Those were during those days they were run by University of Zimbabwe. I don't know now to say who is running those institutions, but they used to produce a grain which you can then restore after harvesting. You can easily restore some part of it and use it without it. And then agriculture, it made a bit of sense to say it made the agriculture produce a bit less expensive to produce, considering today, to say nowadays you can buy a 50 kg of maize seed at 100. Then when you produce a ton, you get it paid 2,000. So if you factor other inputs to say you have bought it for 100, that maize, then you go for fertilizer and labor. It now costs more than the actual produce. So that is where it complicates everything. So we need to revisit the whole process, the whole agriculture issue for us to, and the land issue, the agriculture, the way how we do our farming, for us to enable ourselves to produce, because it has now become cheaper to import than to produce anything in Zimbabwe. Those are my contribution. I sit my mind. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, Sabu Dobbs there. Let's go to Brother Zim. Brother Zimbabwe, the mic is yours.
Hello, Makadini, champion. How are you? How is everything? Thank you very much for co-hosting. Thank you very much for hosting Commander Ford. Thank you very much, Sis Beauty. Thank you very much, Sabuku Dobbs. Thank you very much to everyone who's listening. No, food security. Drought, guys, Zimbabwe. It's a very, very difficult situation, because really and truly, Zimbabwe should not be in a situation where it is experiencing food insecurity. It should not be at all. There is no logical reason for Zimbabwe to be experiencing shortages in food, given the amount of arable land that Zimbabwe has and the history of Zimbabwe. But some people will say we are looking at it from rose-tinted glasses. Okay, fine. Let us look at it from broad-tinted glasses. But facts are facts, and they don't lie. If one wants to reap, the person has to sow. There's no way you can expect to reap a particular plant if you don't put anything in the ground. It's impossible. There's not been any land audit that has actually been given to the people of Zimbabwe so that the people of Zimbabwe can become confident to go and invest in farming at the rate at which Zimbabwe needs to invest in farming. Number one. It's been talked about a lot, but it's never been produced. There is no property rights in Zimbabwe. So how on earth is anyone in their right mind going to go and spend their money, taking money from abroad, and risk their hard-earned capital to go and put down even a penny in Zimbabwean land, if it is not just for the sake of nostalgia? There's no reason. When it comes to national security, in terms of food security, it should know no political color. Just like business, it doesn't know political color. It's just a matter of, can someone produce the goods, yes or no? And that's it. And then they start producing. And it really protects the country from many of these shocks that the country is experiencing. It really does. But because Zimbabwe is in a situation where there are people that put political party interests above national security interests, it leaves the country in a quagmire where as soon as you start talking to somebody about this particular topic, if they are from a particular political party, they'll come at you being defensive. And you cannot have a decent conversation with somebody who is always defensive about anything, because that means they're not listening to understand. They are listening to defend. But what is it that they're trying to defend? Is it that they're trying to defend mediocrity? Is it that they're trying to defend the fact that they don't want to produce land audits? Is it that they're trying to defend the fact that they've been lying for the past 44 years? Is it the fact that they have pretty much abandoned the ideals of the liberation struggle? For what reason are they lying and being on the defensive anytime somebody wants to talk about national security in terms of food security? For what reason? It is painful when you see a country which used to be the breadbasket of Africa, which used to feed other African countries, then become a basket case. Imagine you have a son or a daughter who used to feed other families in your neighborhood. And then that son or daughter decides to start taking drugs, decides to start doing all manner of things, get arrested, not allowed to work, not allowed to produce. And then that son or daughter ends up on the street being given donations every day and every night. Yet they were the darling of the world once upon a time, of the region, of the continent. And they were head and shoulders above everybody else. How painful would that be for you as a parent? That is the pain that Zimbabweans feel when they look at their country every single day. Because it all starts with food. It all starts with land. Without land and food security, you have got no human rights. None at all. Because then you are going back to the time of the Wild Wild West, where the person with the biggest gun is the one that dictates absolutely everything. And when you are in a state of the Wild Wild West and the person with the biggest gun is dictating absolutely everything, you cannot conduct anything in a rational manner, everything becomes about posturing. Absolutely everything. There is rampant theft. People will get away with it. Same as in the Wild Wild West. Why? Because they had guns. There is kleptocracy. People will get away with it. Why? Because they have guns. There is slave labor. People will get away with it. Why? Because they have guns. But on the flip side, you expect to see something good coming out of it. In the Zimbabwe situation, there is nothing good coming out of it. Absolutely nothing. As sad as it is. And all that you will get from the other side is just defense, deflection, defense, and deflection. All day long. And even when the people who are trying to help go and put food in the plate of the young boy or young girl who used to feed everyone, that young boy or young girl then starts swearing at them because the young boy or young girl is drunk with drugs, thinking that they're still on top of the world. They are beginning to have delusions of grandeur, that they're utterly naked. That is where Zimbabwe is at right now as a country. It's terrible. Some countries over the past 43 years have gone from strength to strength, and they've built themselves up to become real movers and shakers in the world. Bangladesh is competing with China in terms of production of garments in the whole world. Name a brand, any brand. Part of their production is in Bangladesh. Yet where was Bangladesh 40 years ago? Zimbabwe was way above Bangladesh 40 years ago in terms of garment industry. And today, what is happening? What is happening today? Do they have corruption in Bangladesh? Yes, they do. Do they have hunger in Bangladesh? Yes, they do. Do they have inflation? Yes, they do. But what makes them able to master just one thing to the point where they're a market leader and they're competing with China? What is Zimbabwe competing with China on? What does Zimbabwe make more than China, other than inflation, poverty, and misery? We are in a very sorry strait, and nobody in ZANU-PF has got the balls to go to the people of Zimbabwe and say, we have messed up. We need to apologize to you. We need you to work with us so that we can fix our economy. We don't want to leave power, but we promise we're going to do things straight. We are now opening up the books. No, it's not happened. Not one day. Not one day. Everything is shrouded in secrecy. They go and announce, oh, we've got this big deal. We've got this big deal. Oh, there's this big investor. So where are the jobs? If there's been a big deal, if there's been a big investor, if there's been a lot of production of crops, where is the evidence? All lies. Lies. And more lies. That's why ZANU-PF put out a big statement saying to all its supporters, don't say nothing about Zumatonge Rwenyika anymore. Imagine they're actually being sanctioned from talking. They're actually being sanctioned from saying 2030 tenga tichipo. Hey, hey, they're being told, shut up, don't say anything. Hey, yeah, it is something else these days, people. But I've got a question. What do you think, please, we need to do so that Zimbabwe can be able to stand tall again? If you were the one in charge, what would you do? Given that you've got the military, you've got the proclivity to use violence and everything else, what would you do in this situation that Zimbabwe is in? Thank you very much. I will stop there. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you there, brother Zimbabwe. I will now continue with my presentation. I think this presentation is going to answer some of your questions, and I beg you, my brother Zimbabwe, there to park there with your question. I will answer it back at a later stage, but at this point, on 13th December, Mutuli Ngube had a meeting with journalists from News 24, where he outlined that grain deficit is going to be, okay, before he mentioned about grain deficit, he said the annual consumption of food or grain in Zimbabwe is 1.8 million tons of maize. By December, as well, by the same time, he also mentioned that only 95,156 hectares of land have put under summer crops, which is a decrease from 465,707 hectares by the same time last year. This was said by one of the cabinet ministers. And from what I do have there, sorry for delaying a bit, maybe it will be because of my gadget that may take time, and agriculture would be, I think, would decrease by 4.9 next year due to El Nino floods. Yeah, that's what he said. And in this case, you don't find any plan, any mitigation measure. I think as well, this is something that we all have to talk about every time, because we don't have disaster and risk management officers who are competent enough to deal with issues of national importance that brings issues that have to do with national security quickly. All right. Then, according to Reuters, Zimbabwe's tobacco produce is expected to fall at least by 10% to 265 million kgs in 2024. From the biggest ever crop production, I think that was 2023, of 296 million. The country, this is the country's main foreign currency earner, and this is caused by drought. So this is the background information that I am just giving. It's not yet to the effects and so forth. I will go to the effects at a time and I will announce it. So in 2023, tobacco farmers exported quite 1.2 billion in 2023 from exports, mainly to China, according to the tobacco market industry. The area tobacco cultivated has declined by 3% to 113,000 hectares in the current season, from 11,700 hectares last year due to drought This is according to Tobacco Marketing Board, Tobacco Industry Marketing Board. And according to them as well, they said tobacco is produced by small scale farmers or smallholder farmers who do not have good irrigation. This was said by the current minister, who is called Anxious Masuka. And when they opened the tobacco season this year in 2024, 1 kilogram of tobacco was costing $4.92, which was a rise from last year when they opened at $4.34. So now we are going to information that was put forth by Africa Report. All right. According to their recommendation in Africa Report, they recommend that Zimbabwe need to import staple maize grain from neighboring countries like South Africa in order to cover, according to the official estimates that comes from all our people that we know, they were saying there's a deficit of 450, but according to what is being said there is conflicting statements. So just be aware of that when I will also mention other things as we go. While Zimbabwe government says there is enough grain stock until next harvest, its social welfare department and international food organizations speak of millions of people who are going to be food insecure in the country. Conflicting food statement. One of the statements comes from July Moyo. The social welfare minister told journalists that 2.7 million will need food assistance during the peak hunger period of January to March 2024. Government has set up aside 71,500 metric tons of grain to distribute across food insecure households during the lean season. But according to World Food Program, they have produced their hunger map in Zimbabwe. The government doesn't have any data at the moment. So on 17th January, WFP said Zimbabwe need, all right, their map shows that 4.1 million people faced food insecurity out of the country's 16.6 million. And the annual maize production requirements is 2.2 or 2.3 metric tons, which is now conflicting with what Mutuli has said by the time around, I think that was 13th of December. And here they said that according to World Food Program, this is targeting something like 1,782,000. All right, its target of maize was 1,782,000 hectares of maize, and 350 hectares of sorghum, and 200,000 hectares of pure millet. All right, it's not only that this problem of drought is being caused by the issue of rain, but at some point there are people who are receiving presidential inputs. Especially, we have got an example of Mukhetsi Abu Bastin, an agribusiness consultant from Umzingwane Esgodin, who said, you know what, I have received maize, I have received a sorghum to plant, but I don't know how to plant it. So in this case, what Dobbs was saying is answered as well, to say, we may find that as it looks like, we think maybe it's about only drought being caused by it. It is also caused by poor planning, because the presidential input scheme that we see people being given, people are being given sorghum, some are being given other things. while most of the people, they prefer to plant maize because to them it is easier. And most of these people, they don't have technical know-how of how to plant. They did not even do soils tests and so forth. So these are some of the issues and which are being raised in terms of this drought. Because some people are saying they do have got they don't have a knowledge in terms of this. And now, according to World Food Program map, the affected areas, they are saying rural areas will be mostly affected by hunger. But statistics also show that thousands of people in Harare and Bulawayo are food insecure due to high prices of maize meal. Provinces that are facing highest food insecurity, we start with Matabele North, that has got 42%. We have got Mashonaland Central with 31%, Masvingo with 30%. The most affected districts, according to this as well, we do have got Binga with 62%. We do have got Kariba with 60%, Mount Darwin with 57%, Umguza with 54%, Mbire with 5%, and Mangwe with 50%. So these are the districts that may have got real problems. And I am also saying to each and everybody here, I know that we may get angry about these issues, but at some point, we know that people who will be struggling are our parents. So we still have got to play around. And so now I am going to the issue that deals with proportion of who is producing what. And they said here, most of the people who are producing maize are communal sector. It's communal sector, not commercial farmers, because remember, commercial farmers, mostly some of them are producing tobacco, some of them soya beans. They do have got a lot of things. Then the humanitarian support needed, especially in affected areas, according to the map that I have mentioned about from WFP, in Matabeleland North, we do have got like 319,000 people who need food aid. We do have got out of population of 808,000. Manicaland, the total population of people in that area is 2.4 million, but those who are seriously facing food insecurity are 736,000. Mashonaland has got a population of 1.3 million people, and those who are food insecure much are 458,000, which is 458,000. Masvingo has got a population of 1.64 million, and those who are food insecure are 493,000. Then we go to Harare, which has got 2.43 million, and people who are food insecure in our urban centers, it's 892. Then we have got Bulawayo with a population of 666,000, and people who are food insecure are 226,000. So, all right, so that is what is there, and the proportion of people who are struggling, I think from over 2.7 million. According to the map, they are saying it's over 2.7 million, but they are saying from that proportion of people, 1.7 people are children who need food aid, and they need food at school. This is according to UNICEF. And at this point, UNICEF is saying to deal with this issue, they need 26.8 million to address the impacts of El Nino, induced drought that is expected to result in water scarcity, food insecurity, and nutritional crisis. Zimbabwe depends on South Africa and Zambia to import maize. According to the data that I have here, South Africa has more than 3.0 million metric tons of maize available for export during the marketing season of 2023 to 2024. According to Wandle Sitobo, the agricultural economist that I think some of you may know, he said South Africa and Zambia are usual suppliers or suppliers of Zimbabwe in terms of need. Zimbabwe imported 220 metric tons in 2022-2023, mainly from South Africa and and Zambia. Then from what we have from the government's perspective, they were blaming logistical challenges by the millers as this was causing delay in terms of delivery of maize. And also, this is according to the minister, Masuka, who said that the current grain stock is at 235,095 metric tons. And the consumption rate, according to what he was saying, but I don't think this is correct. He was saying consumption rate is at 23,000 metric tons per month. Out of 235,095 metric tons of metric tons, there are 188 metric tons of maize, and there is also 46 metric tons of traditional grains. All right. And private sector, according to the reports that I have, it says private sector. I know that some people were saying, okay, there was the issue of El Nino did not start. Yeah, the impacts of the issue of El Nino did not start in 2024, 2023, or 2023, 2024. It started, I think, around 2020. And from the records that I have, private sector, according to the records, it says from April 2023 to December 2023, they imported 186,341 metric tons of maize and 121,549 metric tons of wheat and 5,829 metric tons of wheat flour. It was imported by private sector. I think some of you heard last week when they said they are going to open and also to repeal import bans of grain because we are facing hunger. So, all right, then from there, the farmers in Zimbabwe, they are complaining to say it's not only the problem of buying maize from outside, but also in terms of their inputs and so forth. Seeds and fertilizer are sold in US dollar, and farmers have to look for foreign currency in the parallel market to buy. That is what Makombe, ZCFU president says. And some are saying, Fumvuzwa into us a presidency input scheme, suppose mostly ZANU-PF supporters instead of bona fide farmers. 65% of agricultural activities in Zimbabwe are self-financed. So, all right, then now I am now answering the issue of preparedness. Here it says information dissemination, importation of grain, repealing of import bans, incentives for private sector, lack of data or proper data or appropriate data. Government says it will only know, right, in May or June, the impact of El Nino, the impact El Nino will have on maize crop in Zimbabwe. And now we are going to impact on other sectors. Due to drought, there will be power cuts, right? Because here it says power cuts due to drought, debilitating power cuts that last for 12 to 18 hours, severely affecting mining, agriculture, and other industries. It costs Zimbabwe about 6.1% of gross domestic product per year, comprising of 2.3% of GDP in general inefficiency and excessive network losses. Okay, Then the issue of water dam level at Kariba, we have seen that it's not only affecting Zimbabwe, it also affects Zambia, and it also affects, I think, some parts of Botswana, and maybe some parts of Limpopo in South Africa. So, all right, then the power supply deficit that was there, right? There is maybe a shortage of 400 megawatt that need to be imported in order for the government to supplement the domestic power being produced. There is also issues that have to which have to do with also the way how ZESA is managing this issue of power cuts. I think they are saying there is low tariff that is being charged by ZESA. I don't know how that is true, right? Because it does not reflect the financial cost of energy generation and distribution according to World Bank. High debt level of ZESA and insufficient revenue. All right, then it will lead, according to, let me just say in summary, because of drought, we are saying we are going to have contraction of agriculture by 4.9%. This is according to Mutuli, and Mutuli went on to say mining will grow by 7.6%. But my question would be how, because we know that for mining to be efficient and grow, we need electricity. Because remember, we do have got issues that have to do with irrigation. So if there will be no power supply for irrigation, what about the mining? And also he suggested that accommodation and food services will grow by 6.9. So that's what is here. But in terms of issues that were raised as well by World Bank was saying, in order for Zimbabwe to approach that vision that they say it's 2030 or whatsoever there, even though we know that 2030 is a year of reflecting in terms of sustainability development goals, we just know that there is a statement from our so-called president saying, oh, we expect Zimbabwe to be a middle-income country by 2030. But for that to happen, estimated that there must be a grid expansion of 4.4 billion needed to expand the grid and also to deal with energy deficit and to grow, right? We will need also stable electricity access and also require investment, especially in solar and grid expansion. So what is there is about diversification in terms of power generation. I think with that, to anybody who may have questions, I think Brother Zimbabwe, there you had a question you may ask. I think my presentation is over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mukoma Champion. Can you confirm you hear me? Okay, I really appreciate your presentation, and with that you shortest the period of notice of the topic that I just put a few hours ago, and you went to make a detailed presentation. It helped in really understanding and unpacking some of the issues that most of us might not have known in as far as the situation regarding food security in the country is concerned. So it's something that is encouraging, that people we need to know. But one thing that I've learned through your presentation is that we have got an trustworthy institution in the form of government, which is deliberately misinformed the population and the international community, which might also need to help us in as far as food distribution in the country is concerned. That's one thing that I've learned from your presentation, as well as lack of planning from the government itself. I don't know if it was by design or it is because of the inadequacies and as far as personnel distribution in the government institutions. So these are some of the things that we need to know. But the bottom line is what has got to be done and what is going to be the way forward. Like we said, we can't trust it, the what is in place in as far as the government is concerned. People have got to really make do with what they have, and mostly the affected people are us in the diaspora. To say, really, you cannot leave your parents starving to death because of the misinformation from the government, because of the lack of prioritization from the government. And one thing that people have got to really understand is it's not about a lack of resources. People say Zimbabwe has got so much of resources. We have got money, but the allocations and prioritizations of what is going to be put to people, there are a lot of misuse in as far as funds are concerned in the country. But the government people knew that we are going to be having all these things. So it's important that we need to know. Before I go to Mkoma, Zimbabwe, in order for us to wrap up our discussion, one thing that I also wanted to highlight is to say, because of food insecurity, because of our people being without food in the country, there's a likelihood that the ruling party is going also to manipulate how food aid is going to be distributed in the country. As Beauty, you once spoke about some of the humanitarian institutions or organizations were moved out of Zimbabwe. These people who are giving aid to our people, sometimes they could be whipped to line in order for them to continue operating in the country. Remember this a patriotic bill, I'm not too sure if it is now an act or something. But some of these non-governmental organizations, humanitarian organizations, they are working under harsh conditions to such an extent that sometimes they've got no option except to actually align themselves to what the government would want to do. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, what happens is they are vulnerable people, in particular in the rural areas, are the ones who are going to bear the brunt. Why? Because you are only made to align to the demands of the ruling party in order for you to actually be a beneficiary of the food aid. But it is a situation that people should say, if things were normal in the country, if our economy was functional, we would not have a situation in which people will solely rely on the government or non-governmental organizations. People will simply say, we've got our resources, we've got our disposable income. This is what we need to do to get the food. But let me quickly come to Mkoma, Zimbabwe, to give what you would want to say, and at the same time give your parting shots before we finish our program. Thank you. Mkoma, Zimbabwe, are you there? Okay. It seems he's a bit busy. Mkoma Champion, like I said, we really want to thank you for your presentations, your presentation, and it was very enlightening. Can I give you this opportunity to quickly speak of what you would want to speak, and at the same time give your last shot.
All right, thank you so much. What I would like to say to everyone is that when it comes to the issue of preparedness, our government is not yet prepared about anything, because from the records that we have and what I have presented, I said it is being said that only.
Sorry, Ndregere on the Zoka.
All right, come through.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just maneuvering a little bit. You mentioned something about Mtuli Ngube saying that he's expecting a less than 10% drop in the production in agriculture. If that is what he is expecting, why is it that the country is experiencing nearly 100% drop in the level of food production? Because if at all there is a 4% drop expected by Mthuli Ncube, then for sure there should be just a 4% drop in the amount that is what do you call it, gathered or harvested. But if he is talking about a 4% drop, the numbers, they're not matching. What he's saying doesn't make sense. It's making him sound like a feja guy. Sorry for the pun. Thank you. Am I correct?
Yeah, you are fine. The only thing maybe I wanted to say as well, to say to you, you know, Muturi Ncube, the reason why he's doing like that is trying to give a wrong information. That's why I said we are lacking also appropriate data in terms of data capturing. From data capturing, this is not only one thing that we have seen. We have seen as well some fake numbers of GDP floating around on this platform called X. We have seen that, and I don't think there's anything that we can much debate about it, because we know that they want to mislead not only the population, but is also even the investors. And there is proof, right? If anybody who has done development economics, I think if you once came across the book called Navziga, if you open that book on I think it's chapter 2, page 26, you are going to find that the data that is being passed through, or that is being thrown out there by some, and they validate that no, it's from IMF. No, the reality of the matter is that IMF and World Bank, they do not produce their own data. They rely on a national statistics agents. So anybody who comes to you and tell you that the data is from IMF, that person is a serial propagandist who just wanted to make a fool out of you, which is totally wrong. The only thing that happens to the data that is being supplied is that I think it's which university in America that only deals with trying to convert it to PP, to purchase power parity. That's it. The rest of what someone wants to come here and say to you, this is the real data, this is whatsoever, that person will be lying. I know that the reason why Mutuli is just doing like that is to give you a wrong picture, so that you can say, zvinhu zvakarongeka. Remember, before this currency fail, right? Or before this currency becomes a crisis, what you are saying zvakarongeka. You are saying we have got a surplus. So we at this point, after 5 years of listening to one person, we should be in a position of saying, we know that this person is a propagandist, this person is a serial liar, and there is nothing that comes out of it. Because from my records, like what I've said, they are telling you that we are only going to be able to come up with decisions after June, right? Right now, the drought that we have, look particularly on it, and look particularly to say the number of people that need help. I have mentioned all of them right now from province by province. I have mentioned everything. And now with that, they are telling you that from maybe 3 million or 4 million, 1.7 is children who need to go to school. They are facing hunger and they want to go to school, meaning that if things were okay, what should be happening at this point is that schools were supposed to be used as food distribution center, especially to give to children who are attending school. And that can even also boost the numbers of people who are coming to school, because it would be unwise for you to drop out of school knowing that I go there, I get a meal to eat. When I get back home, I just have got a meal for the night, right? And tomorrow morning at school, I will eat again. So it will also boost the numbers, because we know that 50% of our people in Zimbabwe, they are extremely poor. So it should be boosting numbers of people who are attending schools. So that should not be a problem. Then when you talk about, remember last year, not last year, it was January this year, they introduced the import tariffs and import bans on basic commodities and other things. And they even also introduced it on cement. So when we are talking about this, it's not only the matter of saying, when we talk about it, remember the bans on imports. What picture does that gives you? It gives you that our country is closed for trade, because we are measuring openness of a certain country by the number of trade barriers that they do have. I know that some of my friends and brothers, they want to argue, but the only way to measure openness of an economy is by looking at the barriers that are being put by the government in terms of exports and imports. So if you have got bans on imports, what does that shows you? It shows you that we believe in zero-sum game as trade, right? Or trade as a zero-sum game. And what does that mean? You only want to benefit, you only want to export, you don't want to import it too. But by importing, what are you trying to solve? You are trying to solve food insecurity. That's why you find that sometimes people's goods are being impounded. Why are they being impounded? It's because of these issues of banning imports and other things that normally happens. So we, at this point, one of the recommendations that I may come up with is to deregulate imports, so that people can import their own food, and make sure that, especially some of the guys who are in diaspora, you also send food. Remember, there are some companies that deliver food to your home area or to your place or wherever. That is there. I think there was Kwena before, and there is another called Malaicha, this and that. Those they can take your goods to, but that can be done provided that the import bans have been repealed. As far as it is concerned, the import bans, it is still a discussion of whether to repeal them or not. But I know why are they doing that at this point. It's because they want to, these guys, they want to sell grain, because they have, after some people have imported, so they want to speculate after these people have started. And also, this drought is not only going to affect only people. Remember, we do have got people who have got livestock. And these people, you once had the issue, I think, to those who have been at site, we once had an issue of livestock that is no longer, I think, the stock of cattle having problems with water and other issues. And I think that's where boreholes can help. But I don't know how many boreholes do people need, and when you look at the population that we have, to say, all right, in each village, how many boreholes should be there, to make sure that maybe the stock of cattle can be preserved at this point. And also, I think we need also to raise our voices in terms of reminding our government to say, please don't distribute food along party lines, because hunger does not have a political party, and the issue of drought does not have a political card. So we need also to speak about this issue and make sure that by the end of the day, we solve the problems as they are. So we mustn't be in a position of being scared of speaking reality. We still have got a duty as citizens to speak about the issue of a drought, the issue that has to do with power generation, the issue that has to do as well with the issues of deforestation, because right now there will be drought, there will be whatsoever. Some people, they may want to cut down trees and so forth. That's another environmental hazard that may be done during this time. So I just think at this point, this is all my input that I have. To those maybe we have got questions, you are free to ask. And thank you so much, the listeners, and thank you, the host, for giving us this nice space.
Maita basa mkuma
I
champ.
have one more question. One last
Mkuma
question,
Zimbabwe,
please.
you still had something, okay?
Just one last question. Why is it that World Food Program and other charities and governments can calculate how much food shortages Zimbabwe will have when the Zimbabwe government says they have to wait until June or July? Thank you. That's my last question.
All right, thank you, brother Zimbabwe. Your question, I think government, in terms of resourcing these data collectors, it's a challenge. What I can say to you is that when it comes to data collection, data presentation, the integrity of data, actually, when we talk about the integrity of data, the food program has got a data that is of high integrity. It's not only World Food Program, it's World Food Program, it's USAID. When it comes to census and other things in terms of voting and so forth, you do have got what is called, is it ERC? Yeah, ERC in Zimbabwe. They do have got resources to cover each and every province, and they can come up with credible data that is really, really, I think, valued, rated at A. So organizational agencies that have got data that is rated at A, it's ERC, it's World Food Program, it's USAID, it's is it International Crisis Organization. It's only that I did not compile much, but those are the specific examples that I have compiled at this point. So I don't know whether I have answered your question, brother Zimbabwe. Thank you so much.
Thank you Mkuma champion. Like I said, ndoda kuramba ndiri ndinotenda Mkuma champion, Mkuma Zimbabwe Dobbs and Sibu to have participated in this program. Asi kuti tichipeta hedu chirongwa chedu ichi taida kuti tingotaura just a few things that we have in place kuti as we speak about drought and food insecurity in the country and how the government is prepared to alleviate this. What is on the ground? Taura nyaya kuti we have got between 2.7 to 3.5 million people, which actually constitute about a quarter of the total population of Zimbabwe, which is at risk of having acute food shortages. And we need to really understand how the government has got to work on that. And the other issue is how the government has got to also work with the humanitarian organization. The other thing that we also need to speak about, or we need to know, as we were discussing about this issue, is to say Zimbabwe has actually been put in the bracket of countries which are in a war situation, including Ukraine, Gaza, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and other, and Sudan as well. Meaning to say we are at a position that has got to have so much of attention. As an economist, Mkuma champion, you have broadly and extensively explained the interconnectedness of this drought to what is happening in as far as economic indices are concerned, and it's important that we need also to speak about that. But one thing that people have got also to understand is that just in January, about 50% of the Zimbabwe Zimbabwean dollar actually depreciated, and it resulted in a surge of cost of basic commodities to around 600%. And these are some of the very important things to really take note of, especially considering that our people do not have money, especially a hard currency to buy things on the ground. Because by the way, chikafu mu Zimbabwe chiri kutengwa ne US dollar, and vanhu vari kupuhwa mari dzavo RTGS, which is going to be also the trend as we go to December, where effects a drought are kuzoonekwa chaizvo, in particular kuna vanhu vari kumusha. Saka these are some of the things that we need to know. But before we close, I think one thing that we need to know is mukarangarira ma-investments anoitwa nevanhu vari kuma kudiaspora ndeyekuti it's either unoenda kureal estate because mombe dzinenge dzichibereka, they don't actually anticipate kuti kune zvinhu zvakaita sedrought zvinodi zvinoitika. So I was looking at some of the things that are happening, or the after effects of drought, to say both the wild animals and domestic animals, they're actually succumbing to this thing. Why? Because of the erratic rains and the erratic water distribution in the country. Saka muchaona kuti investment yakaitwa nevanhu both domestically and who are abroad, primary, secondary, as well as the tertiary institutions, there is going to be an acute drop in the enrollment of people, students in those institutions. Why? Because vabereki vanenge vakuprioritize mari dzavo kuti it's rather better either to suspend or completely drop out of school tochiisa maresources pane chikafu atingafi vana vachienda kuchikoro. So these are some of the things that we are likely going to be having, unless and until the government, which is unlikely, going to put in place measures that can help people kuti vabatsirikane pane chikafu chekudya. And lastly, nyaya chaitika ndeyekuti we are going to be having a lot of people who are going to abuse our people, especially when they go either to South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, as well as Zambia, to go and try to source some food to get. Saka vanhu vaya vanomhanya vachienda vachinotenga vanozouya vachizopa maprice akadi akakwirira strike. Fortunately, this year is not going to be as compared to 2008 when we had empty shelves because kwanga kusina mari dzekunze. So these are some of the things that we need really to understand and say, when we are getting right into what is going to be happening as a result of the drought, we are going to be having a lot of challenges, and this can only be alleviated if the Zimbabweans come together. Unfortunately, the main stakeholder, which is supposed to be at the center of resolving the problem, has actually put people at the peripheries of the solution to the problem. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming to really speak about this very important topic. Until we meet again next week with yet another topic that delves into issues to do with the current affairs in Zimbabwe, we thank you once again.